Kawana Jenkins, this correctional officer, allowed an inmate to record a video while doing the unthinkable. Kawana faced 11 charges, including 5 for violating the oath of a public officer and 1 for providing a prohibited item to an inmate. In the early hours of January 28, 2023, correctional officers at Fulton County Jail conducted a sweep in the maximum security wing. They seized more than a dozen weapons, contraband, and 11 phones. As the officers checked the phones, they stumbled upon a video of one of their own, 36-year-old Kawana Jenkins with inmate Yamal Ward. Yamal, 20, was awaiting trial for a 2022 murder and faced 6 additional charges. In another recording, Kawana was sitting in a chair and being filmed by an unidentified inmate. Her index finger disappeared into her mouth as she simulated you-know-what. Kawana was arrested and immediately fired. The only person who comes close to her level of audacity is Joyce Mitchell, and you'll soon understand why. Joyce Mitchell left her husband and son to flee to Mexico with an inmate. Specifically, she was charged with promoting contraband in the 1st degree and criminal facilitation in the 4th degree. On Saturday, June 6, 2015, correctional officers at the Impregnable Clinton Correctional Facility in New York noticed that inmates Richard Matt and David Sweet did not respond during the 5:30 a.m. count. When officers checked on them, they found clothing arranged under their sheets. Additionally, all they found was a nice note that the men left behind. They had cut holes in the steel walls of their cells with power tools and climbed through pipes and tunnels all the way to a broken utility access hatch a block away, similar to the classic movie Escape from Alcatraz. The prison hadn't had an escape in 100 years, and these were dangerous men. Richard was serving 25 years to life for the 1997 kidnapping and murder of a 76-year-old businessman who had fired him, leading him to seek revenge by killing and dismembering him. David was no better, having been charged twice with attempted 2nd-degree robbery by age 16. In 2002, he upped the ante by firing 15 shots at a sheriff and running him over with his car, earning him a life sentence, keeping him behind bars ever since. Both men were added to the U.S. Marshal's most wanted list. Hundreds of state and local law enforcement officers worked tirelessly to recapture the killers before they harmed anyone else. 3 weeks later, the manhunt ended with Richard's death. A tactical team from Customs and Border Protection encountered Matt in the woods, challenged him, and shot him. David was captured in a hideout just a mile from the Canadian border. By then, authorities had answered the question everyone was asking: how do we exactly want to find out what happened? One of the big questions was where the tools came from on the day the men made their big escape. Joyce Mitchell, an instructor in the prison sewing workshop, had been admitted to the hospital with nerves a week later. The police knew she had a lot to worry about. The 51-year-old woman had been very busy behind bars. In fact, she had her eyes on David, buying him homemade food and contraband after her shift. The two would disappear into a storage closet in the sewing workshop for at least half an hour, surprisingly. David wasn't the only one she was involved with. Joyce had a relationship with Richard Matt, sending him spicy notes and nude photos. Eventually, she convinced prison officials to move David to the cell next to Richard's before the escape. Joyce smuggled in some tools for the men, including saw blades, 2 chisels, and a punch. The 51-year-old woman also planned to meet them at midnight and flee to Mexico together. Officers confronted Joyce with what they knew. Her husband, who also worked at the prison, defended her on the news. "I just can't believe it," he said. This was his reaction when he found out they had escaped. And they really did escape. The officers continued to investigate.
Simplemente no puedo creerlo, dijo. Esta fue su reacción cuando dijo que se habían fugado. Y es que realmente se escaparon. Los oficiales continuaron indagando. Joder, la conoces desde hace 21 años. ¿No la miraste a los ojos? Nada parecía fuera de lo común en su expresión o comportamiento. Nada, respondió él. Igual se veía sorprendida. Más tarde cambió su historia. La gente necesita saber que solo intentaba salvar a mi familia.
She claimed that the men had threatened to kill her husband if she didn't help them, but the police already knew she was lying. Of course, Joyce pleaded guilty. The next officer on the list was foolish enough to fall for the same trick: Denise Prell. If the inmates at the Clinton Correctional Facility thought Cupid was done with them, they were in for a nice surprise. Denise faced 25 charges, including promoting contraband in prison, third-degree abuse, and 23 charges of official misconduct. In September 2015, just then, Denise and her husband had divorced and he had custody of the children. Denise claimed that the affair didn't ruin her marriage, but she also didn't hold a torch for Paul. However, this next officer is out of luck again, and her secret romance is about to be exposed in the most humiliating way imaginable. Charlene O'Banion. When good Charlene arrived at work that morning, she had no idea that the whole prison knew about the antics she had gotten into. Charlene was charged with inappropriate activity with a person in custody. Correctional officers at the Montgomery County Jail facility in Conroe, Texas, received a tip that correctional officer Charlene O'Banion, 33, had engaged in intimate encounters with an inmate under her custody. After secretly recording her phone calls, detectives discovered that the object of her affection was Jacob Parker, a 28-year-old guy who was behind bars for firearm possession and resisting arrest.
Nos notificaron de una posible relación inapropiada entre usted y Jacob Parker, así que estamos aquí por eso. Solo quiero hablar contigo al respecto. ¿Sabes de quién estoy hablando? Sí, está en la clase 6, respondió Charlene, que parecía sorprendida. El detective le preguntó si había hablado con él en alguna llamada. Una vez más, Charlene lo negó rotundamente. ¿Has hablado con él en llamadas telefónicas de la cárcel o algo parecido? En lo absoluto. Bien, cuando le preguntaron en qué bloque estaba la celda de Jacob, frunció la vista como si fuera un recuerdo vago. ¿Y dónde está Jacob como recluso de confianza?, preguntó el oficial. Creo que está en la lavandería. Creo que está... Rápidamente se inventó una historia enredada que involucraba a otro recluso. ¿De dónde creen ustedes que vendría esta acusación?
Theft on December 17, 2021. Detectives confronted Charlene about her relationship with Jacob. The detective let her talk, even asked her when it all happened, knowing full well he was leading her into a trap. The next agent on the list even offered a show for the other inmates. She thought it would be a great idea to have a love marathon in front of everyone. We're talking about Tina Gonzalez. In December 2019, officers at Fresno County Jail received a tip that an inmate had a cell phone and was also in a relationship with 26-year-old officer Tina Gonzalez. If she thought that was the end of it, she was in for a big surprise. The sheriff's office opened an investigation into Tina and quickly found evidence supporting the accusations. In May 2020, Tina was arrested and charged. So, she pleaded guilty to all charges against her. If the officers were hoping to see any sign of remorse in her, their expectations were shattered. Even after being caught, Tina kept calling the lucky inmate and boasting about what she had done.